another McFarlane DC Superpowers unboxing, and this is Batman, but it's not just any Batman, it's the Batman of Zur-En-Arrh. Now, what's the Batman of Zur-En-Arrh? I'm glad you asked. Let's go ahead and read the bio on the back here. Bruce Wayne took part in an isolation experiment and was given the post-hypnotic phrase Zur-En-Arrh. When heard by Bruce years later, this trigger phrase shatters his mind. Batman had previously developed a new persona within himself, calling himself the Batman of Zur-En-Arrh. Well, that's kind of an oversimplification. Okay, so technically, this is not the version of Batman described there at all. This is the Silver Age version of the Batman of Zur-En-Arrh, who was an alien from the planet Zur-En-Arrh, and his name was Tlano, and he had created his own Batman-inspired identity. There's an episode of The Brave and the Bold based on the original comic book. It's worth checking out. The description on the back is much more like the modern take on the Batman of Zur-En-Arrh that Grant Morrison come up with years ago during their run on the Batman comic book, part of that whole big arc that they did with the culminated in Batman R.I.P. And but basically, yeah, that in that one, the Zur-En-Arrh Batman was a backup personality that Bruce Wayne had in his head in case he was ever mentally broken, that would take over for him. He's what happens when you take Bruce Wayne out of the equation. But his costume was a little different as far as like it was, a bit of a grittier take on this. It looked like it was made out of garbage. Kind of like Robert Pattinson's Batman costume looks like it was made out of garbage, but it still looked better than that one because at least it was drawn in a comic book and not like, Robert Pattinson. Wasn't enough for him to ruin vampires. He had to ruin Batman too. So I've got this one to open today, and probably, I guess, well, technically it'd be later on today, but maybe tomorrow. I don't know. But this will be the next one I open, which is the Justice Lord's Superman. And then I also have the Superpowers Batmobile from McFarlane Toys that I'll need to be opening. And I've got a few of the other McFarlane figures down here. We're going to compare to some of the other Batman figures. Unfortunately, the one that's missing would be the one that would be the most relevant, which I know I have it around here somewhere, but I think it got misplaced while I was moving around. Maybe it's in this box. Maybe I'm lucky and it's in this box. I could have sworn I had it around here somewhere, but now I'm not sure where it is. Nah, it's not in there. The Hush Batman, which would have been the first McFarlane Superpowers Batman. Like I said, I have it, but I'm not sure where it is right now since I've been moving and a lot of my stuff's kind of scattered around. But I've got like the three other Batmans, however you want to phrase that, from this line so far that I have. I do not have the golden Batman that we can see there, the Tech Shield Batman homage. I don't have that one yet. That one apparently is kind of hard to find. But I do have the Bronze Age, the blue and gray Batman. I have the all black, kind of Michael Keaton-ish looking Batman, and I have Thomas Wayne. I have the Flashpoint Batman. So we'll compare all three of those with this figure. But if I had the Hush one, it's pretty much, this is a straight up repaint of the Hush Batman, which is why I wish I had that one. Thomas Wayne is kind of partially a repaint of that one, but we'll compare them in a second. So this piece of artwork here is kind of interesting because that's a piece from the old style guide. Murphy Anderson drew that, I believe. It might be Kurt Swan pencils with Murphy Anderson inks, so a Swanderson kind of deal. Because I think they did a lot of the. I know that Superman would have been Swanderson, but I think some of them were just Murphy Anderson by himself. I'm not sure about this one. If I had to guess, I would say it looks to me like it could be Kurt Swan with Anderson inks, so I'm not sure. But this was not drawn to be a Zur-En-Arrh Batman initially. This was just drawn to be a regular Batman, and this would have been like around the tail end of the New Look era, like would have been I think right before Neil Adams would have come in and kind of redesigned Batman and that sort of thing. But it's that sort of in the Carmine Infantino mold of Batman, which would have been after Zur-En-Arrh would have appeared in the comic book. That was a Dick Sprang drawn joint, and I figure this is probably just the sort of thing where like they've got access to style guides, they've got limited character choices that they can pick from. Like this Superman, we'll talk more about this when I open this up. This is redrawn from just a regular Superman figure. It's all the costume changes are done in the coloring, and likewise with this one. So I figure Zur-En-Arrh didn't really have an illustration in the style guide that they could use, so they probably just grabbed an illustration from the style guide that they thought would work best. And this one, since it covers up his emblem and his belt, and you can't really see the shoulders that well, except for this one where you see like a little bit of red on it. Excuse me. They hid most of the stuff that would have been differentiating the Zur-En-Arrh Batman from the regular Batman, and just colored it like a Zur-En-Arrh Batman and called it a day. So, I can think of worse ways to pull that off. So it works. It's a nice illustration. So we've read the bio. We've talked about the packaging artwork. We got a shot of the cross-sell artwork, which has gotten too many for them to read off at this point. So I'm not going to read them off anymore, but you can freeze frame that if you want to and check out all the figures on the back here. But this is labeled as Zur-En-Arrh Batman on the back, and Justice Lord Superman likewise is listed as Lord Superman. So they did differentiate those two characters, even though the Golden Batman is just labeled as Batman, and the Golden Flash is simply labeled as the Flash. Let's see, 17. Yeah, all the Flashes are just labeled as the Flash on this one. So even though, like, I want to say that the bright red Flash is supposed to be specifically Barry Allen, and the dark red Flash is specifically supposed to be Wally West, even though they're the same mold, same exact mold. So anyway, let's go ahead and open them up. And unlike a lot of these Superpowers figures, it seems like the card is rather firmly glued on here. I know, like, occasionally in the wild, I will see the Bronze Age Batman at a Walmart or something, and I'll check to see if the card's like firmly glued on there, because those all seemed like they were kind of loosely glued. I would like to have a carded one, like to keep on the card. That's why I keep looking for one. But all of them, they keep the cards are just so lightly glued on there. I haven't found one that was worth buying to keep on the card yet. So we got a little piece, a little plastic bubble in here to keep the cape in line. I got to give kudos to Mcfarlane for coming up with this, rather than having the cape in there with they had the tab puncturing it for some of those earliest ones, and of course, we as the fans hated that. So they stopped doing that. So good on them for that. And I'm going to, when I take them out of the package, I'm also going to try to get the cape off of him, because I don't want to pull the cape, like the whole cape through that hole. I'm just going to try to pull the neck piece through the hole. So I'm going to try to take him out without taking out that cape. He is really firmly in this bubble. So come on, you. There we go. I'm going to get that off of there. And I feel like the clips on these capes on the Mcfarlane figures, I've mentioned before, I feel like they're a little too loose. They could be a bit tighter. So it comes off rather easily. But there he is out of the package. There is our Zur-En-Arrh Batman. He does have solid fists, so he can't hold any kind of accessories. I tend to think of Zur-En-Arrh Batman as having a baseball bat, since if we're talking about the Grant Morrison version, sure. And I noticed the purple, it doesn't match up 100% between the cape and the cowl. Like, you can see it a little bit on the camera, but I think it actually matches up better on the camera than it does in person. The cape is a little bit lighter and a little bit more on the red side of purple, and the cowl is a little bit darker and a little bit more on the blue side of purple. So he does have a little bit of staining at the shoulders, if you can see that, like a little bit of red staining from the dye that would come from the cape on the fabric cape. So that's unfortunate, but you know it seems to happen with these Mcfarlane figures quite a bit. So here we have basically it's a repaint of the Hush Batman, and we can see that he is molded with a red torso and red legs. I don't know, is that painted red? It looks like it might be painted red. And then the arms are molded in yellow plastic, and there's a little bit of a red point here. Zur-En-Arrh Batman had these kind of jagged points coming off of like the red tunic, which looks like it was a red tunic over a yellow shirt. But since this is a repaint, they just kind of have like this one sort of red spike painted on there. It's nice that they went through the effort, but I would have imagined if they had gone through the effort, they probably should have put more than one spike on there. I think 3 would have been good. So, and then he's got the same utility belt as the Hush Batman with a bat symbol printed onto the buckle. And the emblem is a rather unique emblem. Again, it looks like the way that Dick Spring drew it in the comic book. At the time that the original Super Batman of Planet X, I believe was the title, it might have been Batman, the Superman of Planet X. Batman, when he went to the Zur-En-Arrh, he gained superhuman powers like Superman. And that was both in the Silver Age story and in the Brave and the Bold episode, which is worth watching. If you haven't seen that, it's definitely worth watching. The cape has some long spikes on it, and they stay fairly straight. Some of these Mcfarlane capes, I've noticed that the capes, the scallops kind of curl up a little bit, but this one they're not having that problem, so that's good. So we're going to take the cape off them for a second, so we can go over the articulation. So the head rotates all the way around. And like I said, this is straight up the Hush Batman head repainted, but it works really well. I think it looks good with the black shadow on the front. This is the same mold that they're going to use for the anime. I'm sorry, the manga Batman when that comes out. So I'm looking forward to that one. So the head rotates all the way around. The arms rotate all the way around. It's just a simple cut joint. No elbow joints, no wrist joints. This is an old school style action figure, so he's got old school action figure articulation. This is supposed to be like an 80s superpowers figure. So legs kick up about that far, and they kick back about that far. So he can do the splits no problem, but he does the splits that way instead of the other way. And then of course this is a very tight joint. And then of course he has the knee joint. Bends down like that, nothing below the knee, no ankle joint, no boot cut, no thigh cut, anything like that. Like I said, this is basically a 7-point of articulation figure, which for the 80s would have been pretty good. Like anything like short of G.I. Joe usually had like 5 points of articulation, but Superpowers gave you the extra points of articulation at the knees. So kudos to them for that. And let's go ahead and put the cape back on him. And as usual, the Mcfarlane capes aren't quite sewn correctly as compared to how they were sewn in the 1980s. The old Kenner Superpowers capes were sewn a little differently, but you can kind of tuck the ends of the cape underneath the clip, and then it looks a little better, I think. So let's have a look at him next to some of these other Superpowers figures. And the Hush Batman had a broader chest and was a little more muscular than the later Bronze Age one they did. This is a little more accurate to what the original Superpowers figure looked like as far as his build, but the first Mcfarlane go at Batman was a bit more sort of stocky, and I suppose that's why they used this body for this Silver Age inspired figure, because it does look a little bit more like a Dick Sprang type of Batman as far as like the build and the musculature goes. So I can understand why they did that. And here we can have a shot of him next to the more sort of Keatonish Batman in the all black suit. This is what I think of as being like the Toy Biz prototype, like you saw in the ads. So I really like this figure because this is the one that I always wanted when I saw the ads that Toy Biz put out, and they basically just repainted Superpowers Batman. So I just kind of wanted a Superpowers Batman in black. And we can get a look at next to Thomas Wayne. And like I said, Thomas Wayne shares a lot of parts with this guy that were used on the Hush Batman as well. Thomas Wayne had a new head and new thighs to have the gun holsters that cannot hold guns that he doesn't come with, and he couldn't hold guns anyway because he has solid fists. So Zur-En-Arrh is definitely more of a niche version of Batman. Like there are hardcore Grant Morrison Batman fans that will want to have this action figure because they're fans of Grant Morrison's work and like to collect stuff based on their run on Batman, and that's understandable. I'm a pretty big fan of Grant Morrison's take on Batman. I really enjoyed the Arkham Asylum Serious House on Serious Earth. Felt like that was a really good graph. That's one of my favorite Batman comics, and that was really early on in Morrison's career, and they were like very much in that sort of Vertigo milieu as far as their comic book writing style went at that time. But once Morrison wrote JLA, that was when they started to get kind of a little more into the mainstream superheroics of the characters, but at the same time still kept that sort of Morrison weirdness and quirkiness that I enjoy. So, and then you had concepts like when they got into their Batman run, you had concepts like the Batman of Zur-En-Arrh. And what I liked a lot about Morrison's run on Batman with the RIP and all that kind of stuff was they went back and they took a lot of these like kind of goofy, I don't mean that in a pejorative way, but they were kind of goofy, these Silver Age concepts, and kind of tried to make them work in the context of the more serious modern day Batman stories, and explained a lot of the weirdness as like hallucinations brought on by like chemical attacks by the villains, and like I'd noted on the bio on the figure package when I read that, like Bruce Wayne being in that sensory deprivation experiment. But let me get one more. Hang on a second. We can do one more thing. Let me grab Batmite because we have the New Adventures of Batman Batmite figure. Batmite, of course, figured in with Grant Morrison's Batman run because, of course, Batmite would figure in with Grant Morrison's Batman run. So we got to get a shot of the Batman of Zur-En-Arrh and Batmite, which was not spelled M-I-T-E in Morrison's version. No, Morrison spelled it M-I-G-H-T, which I really liked because, might as in power, might as in possibilities. It worked both ways. And, are you really an alien imp from another dimension? Or are you just a figment of my imagination? The fifth dimension is imagination. So, yeah. Pretty cool. They look good together, don't they? Hey, they're both wearing purple. It makes sense. So, yeah, maybe Mcfarlane could at some point do a repaint of this Batmite figurine more in the OG colors, like in the Silver Age comic strip. And that way you could have that go with your Superpowers figures. I think that would be really cool. So like Batman of Zur-En-Arrh, for the reasons that I got into with him being kind of a niche character, I don't know if I could recommend him to just anybody. Like if you're a fan of Grant Morrison's comic or the Silver Age comics or the Brave and the Bold cartoon show, you're going to want to have this guy because he figured prominently in with all of those things. But I kind of feel like most sort of more casual fans of Batman or more sort of mainstream fans of Batman might turn their nose up at this guy. But me being like more the hardcore Batman comic book fan and knowing a lot of the things that this character represents, I'm glad to have him in my collection. And I think he's definitely one, like, all three of these guys down here I think are pretty great. And he's definitely one I would be happy to have standing among them. And I'm really looking forward to that Bat manga figure. I'm thinking that's going to be really cool. I'm going to be really happy with that. Oddly enough, the one that is my least favorite of the ones that I've gotten from Mcfarlane so far as superpowers goes, is the Hush Batman, which I don't really have as much of an attachment to that story, but that's just me. Maybe Hush is like one of your favorite Batman stories, because I know it's a lot of people's favorite Batman stories, but for me, it was just kind of like, it was all right. Like, mainly it was the Jim Lee artwork, I think, that is why that story is so popular. So everybody loves the Jim Lee artwork. I think Jim Lee's pretty good, so I got no problem with the artwork, certainly. But the story itself is just kind of like, I think, kind of weak. But, oh well, whatever. I know a lot of people like it. I'm not trying to slam on it. So, anyway, I guess that's pretty much it for Batman of Zur-En-Arrh. I'd say go ahead and pick him up if he tickles your fancy. But it's probably one that I think could probably be an easy pass for a lot of people too. But me personally, I'm glad I didn't sleep on this guy. I'm glad I picked him up. And I'm looking forward to our next episode when we open up Justice Lord Superman, and we can talk a little bit about that character. And he's not really a character from the comics so much as he is from the Justice League animated series. So that's pretty cool. I like seeing Mcfarlane do the stuff like this, and like Zur-En-Arrh and Justice Lords. They're kind of like a little more niche characters that, the fans of the comic books in the cartoon shows and things, we're going to recognize them and we're going to pick them up. And you got to keep a Batman and a Superman on the shelf anyway, right? So you might as well do some interesting stuff with them and not just, weird, wacky colors for the sake of weird, wacky colors. I say that as I'm holding a red, purple, and yellow Batman. but like I said, it makes sense in context. Anyway, if you want to make sure you catch the Justice Lord Superman video and the Batmobile video I'll be doing sometime in the next couple of days, make sure that you like and subscribe, all the fun YouTube stuff down below. Leave a comment. Let me know what you think about this figure and Batman in general. And, of course, the Batman of Zur-En-Arrh, who is a fairly interesting character with a fairly interesting history. So we will talk to you next time. Bye.